Hello there, I'm your host Griffin, and today we are reading How Has Online Dating Worked For You? Please consider subscribing if you enjoy the video. Posted a comment on a metal band's official page and got a request from this chick. Started talking to her cause I wanted to bone, but ended up with a house and a kid with her. 10 years strong straight out of my space. If you're looking at my numbers, horrible. But if you're looking at my experiences, great. Girl I met online, I dated for a few months. Turns out she was temporarily separated from her husband. She started seeing another guy without anyone else knowing. I find out she was cheating on me and still married when the wife, a girlfriend of the guy she was messing around with, spray painted her car when she was caught at his house one night. The police called me to figure out where I was that night and told me she was married, but not to the guy she had been spending the night with. This was the same day my mother died. My friend was weighing the pros and cons of dating this girl. He described a girl who I thought sounded really great and advised him to see her. He didn't and I never met her. She had a unique name and years later I see that name on Tinder. I think it couldn't be a coincidence, so I message her the story of my friend and how I thought he blew it. We've been dating for 7 months. I told my friend and he got a good laugh. Met a girl on Plenty of Fish. We went out, but it didn't really work out. We are still friends and talk frequently 3+ years later. Met my ex-girlfriend on Tinder. 2 years together followed by an unhealthy adult breakup. We still keep a good relationship post-breakup. I think we were both so ready to find someone right at that time that we haven't stopped to take time for each of us as a person. We became one person as a couple and not two people part of a team. We were doing literally everything with each other and that led to our downfall. Still like her very much though and probably always will. I guess my advice is a lot of people are ready to put everything on the fast lane while dating online, and that's a mistake. Take your time. Rarely match. When I do get a couple messages back and forth of pleasantries and getting to know, then ghosted. Every time. Never got in a date with anyone from online. I met my wife in a less traditional online setting. We met on Xbox Live 6 years ago. Long story short, met the love of my life on POF in September 2018. Soulmate who completed me, made me and my body sing. He got diagnosed with cancer in January 2019. Given 18 months to live, died December 2019. So, very good for 14 wonderful months. I married and divorced a man I met on Tinder, so yes and no. Back in 2016, I created an Twitter account as a place to blow off steam and rant about things I didn't want my current future employers seeing. Wasn't looking to make friends and definitely wasn't looking for romance. But one day another randy met me one of my tweets with a message like, "Oh my god, yes. I totally agree with this." We started talking about random topics and hit it off immediately. Over the next few weeks, we talked on the phone a lot, FaceTimed every night, and before either of us realized what was happening, we were falling in love. People will argue whether you can fall in love with someone you've never met, but I can tell you that it's absolutely possible. One minor problem: I lived in South Georgia at the time and she lived over 1,000 miles away in Chicago. Another minor problem: both of our parents were absolutely opposed to us dating and did everything they could to keep us apart. She was a freshman in college and I was a sophomore at the time, and both of us were still living at home, so that became a challenge. If you thought a long-distance relationship was hard, try having a long-distance relationship in secret. Her parents wouldn't let me visit her, and every time we'd try to plan a trip to meet up, things would fall through. After about 7 months of waiting, I did the craziest thing I've ever done. I got on a plane and flew to Chicago without telling anyone where I was going or telling her that I was coming. I called her from the O'Hare airport and nearly gave her a heart attack. Her parents somehow agreed to let her come see me after loading her purse with mace and pepper spray, and we spent an incredible few days laughing together and falling more in love than we thought possible. Amazed that I would go to that much effort to date their daughter, her parents eventually relented and gave us their blessing. We continued to date long distance, and in October 2018 I dropped to one knee on the Chicago waterfront and asked her to marry me. She said yes, and made me the luckiest man alive. Fast forward to May 2019. I packed up my life and drove 14 hours straight with my golden retriever to start a new life in Chicago with the girl I love. Adjusting to Chicago has been a challenge for this die-hard southerner, but it's worth it and I'd do it all again in a heartbeat. When the stars align and fate brings an incredible woman into your life, you don't give up on her just because she lives 1,000 miles away. If you made it this far, thanks for putting up with my rambling. Hopefully this inspires you not to give up on love. Messaged by a girl on Bumble who was wearing a pro wrestling and a Mass Effect shirt in 2 different pics, and responded immediately. Been dating for over a year now. I met a boy online 14 years ago when I was 17. He was in Alaska. I was in Australia, but he was my online dating boyfriend. He's currently sitting next to me in Australia as my husband of 8 years. 10 out of 10 would find in the abyss of the internet and marry so hard again. Not great. Highlights include the dude that kept texting me pictures of Hitler until I blocked him, several who got too drunk to stand, one who puked as I tucked him in, and then called me a snotty bitch for not fricking him. And the guy who licked my face with no preamble on the ride home. Yeah, I'm done LOL. Married the first girl I dated who I met online. It was on my BBS, and 25 years ago, but it did work. Got married to the person I met online dating. After countless shit dates, it was just really nice, relaxed, and we just clicked. We've barely been apart since, and that was 10 years ago. A guy messaged me on Facebook out of the blue talking about my Tinder profile, said we go to the same university and that it was the only way to reach me since we weren't matched. Long story short, it was mostly an inappropriate and one-sided 5-minute conversation. Had to delete my account after that. 2 years ago I was swiping through Bumble on a boring, unnecessary conference call and I swiped right on the woman I will be marrying later this year. Matched my missus on Tinder, both type 1 diabetic, both worked in the same company, became the factory legend, because I got with an office girl. Now we live in Arundel with a river in our back garden. I wasn't truly searching for a boyfriend, but I met a boy online and we started dating in 2016. He moved in a year and a half later and we just celebrated our 4-year anniversary. So not really dating. But I met my husband online, in a MSN chat room. In 1999 when online dating was unheard of. One day he sent me a whisper, a private message for those of you who have never heard of MSN chat, and asked if he could come see me. He lived 5 hours away and drove down to take me to dinner and then drove back home. 20 years later we are married for 13 years after doing long distance for 7, and have 3 kids. Started Tinder for a few months. 2-3 months no matches. Redid my pictures twice. Still nothing. Deleted and haven't tried again. Thinking of trying again. I was skeptical about it, but I swiped aggressively, both left and right, for 2 weeks hoping something would work out. Ended up that after 3 weeks I had a date, with 2 separate girls, Saturday, and one Sunday. Saturday flaked the morning of, claiming to be too hungover to make it. Mind you, this was 10 hours before the agreed time, so I was not impressed. I was cool about it though, said we could reschedule for later in the week. Second girl messaged me that afternoon asking if I wanted to meet that night instead. I said yay, absolutely, thinking, hey, that's pretty neat. So we agreed to meet at a restaurant of her choosing, and I show up 5 minutes early. Get there, and there's a private event that's closed to the public. So now I'm thinking this is quite a curveball. I wonder if I will have to pretend to know someone at their private corporate event. It wasn't that, though. She just didn't know about the private event, so we went somewhere else. Been seeing her for over a month now, and it's going great. Sure, there are plenty of horror stories, but really my personal opinion is that even if you have 9 bad dates, it only takes 1 for it all to turn around. I may have gotten lucky, it is still early, but even if I hadn't, if you are serious about wanting a relationship you have to keep trying. It won't fall out of the sky. We met online, talked almost every day for a year, met, dated, got married and 12 years later still together. Was on several online sites for a few years, a couple of dates here and there, but nothing serious. Then I connected with one girl and we clicked. First date ended up being a 3-hour conversation hanging out at a restaurant where we not only knew we went to the same college at the same time, but had mutual friends. I thought it was too far-fetched that we hadn't met in college, so that night after the date I went through old digital photos convinced we had met. I found a group photo with her in it, then remembered meeting her. We absolutely would not have worked as a couple. Thinking it was a bit much to tell her that I spent an hour scouring photos, I waited to tell her that we actually did meet in college. On our wedding day a year and a half later, it was a reveal in my vows, that even somehow after our first date I thought it would be a surprise to tell her later on. Our child just turned 10 weeks old. We love each other, and bicker like an old married couple. All. because we had another chance to meet at the right time. I'm too ugly for Tinder, but just attractive enough to get random ads from some women on Facebook. Haven't met anyone I really connect with, though. Before, blowing money on video games and fast food, lonely and slept as much as I could. After, married, have a daughter, I'm part of her family now and I love them all. Home is clean and comfortable and we're smart with our money and we'll have a house with land before too long. Met my wife via online dating. When I came to the US there was no other way to meet women. All the women in grad school had boyfriends since high school or were already married, so I gave online dating a shot. It was a roller coaster process, but in the end I met my wife so it all worked out well. Not well whatsoever. The matches I have either ghost me or send a few messages then never text again. It's also bots that I get as well. Got to a point I just stopped bothering very much. Currently laying next to my best Tinder match and our dog, and I wouldn't want it any other way. I was invited to a gang bang. Too bad the girl never showed up. Still had sex though. Terribly for the first half a year or so. I was about to give up when I found a girl with a really high match percentage to me. We went out and now, over 4 years later, we're engaged and living together in a new state. So in the end, it worked out pretty well. I put in zero effort. I've got zero results. Funny that. A good friend met her husband online, and before she met him she'd had a few other less successful relationships from online dating sites. No horror stories, just things that didn't work out. I feel like I've become too reliant on it. I've met all my exes through apps and I wish I knew how to meet people the old-fashioned way. I met an awesome Canadian flight attendant. She was flying here to Germany once or twice a week. We dated for some time. Unfortunately it didn't work out in the long run, but it was a great experience and I still consider her a good friend. I tried Bumble once, went on a date and it worked out. We're still together 1 year on. That has been my first and only online dating experience, so literally a 100% success ratio for me, though I wasn't expecting that going in. Heavy case of mistaken identity. Who's Bob Vagine? Not at fricking all. Friend of mine met his wife online. I don't know what the frick I'm doing wrong. I joined Tinder after I had broken up with my exes per my friend's insistence just to have fun. Within 3 days I had matched with a guy with who we never ran out of things to say, so a week later we met up and we just clicked. Fast forward, it's now been 3 years that we are together and even more in love than when we first met, and we even have a house together. Red heart. Met my wife on Tinder. Don't tell anybody that though. I spotted a guy at my local bar doing lights for the band that was performing and I sadly got kicked out before approaching him for using the men's washroom because I couldn't wait in the huge women's lineup. LOL. Anyways, so I immediately downloaded Tinder to see if I could find him and I didn't. He matched me. We're still kicking it 3 years later. Thanks Tinder. Well, it works. I've been on 4 dates via Tinder and 1 date via Bumble. Problem is, either I have bad luck or I am just an idiot. Date 1, puked on me, and tried to make out with me naked in a hallway covered in vomit. Date 2, went psycho, and started to stalk me, and even found out where I worked. All this, because I wouldn't help her steal a gosling from a petting zoo. Date 3, pretty sure it was a setup to rob me. Date 4, uneventful, but we realized we didn't click well. No craziness. A nice woman. We were just in different places in life. Date 5, Bumble, met in person, and she said I was too short for her. I'm 6'1", she was 4'11". Rather debilitating experience. Lots of fraud, in pictures and about me descriptions and fake likes. Looking at you, match. I had pretty much given up, stopped subscribing and only stayed on one where I could receive messages for free, and then a gal sent a message. We were an incredibly good fit, had a heck of a lot of fun together. She moved in after 4 months with her 3 Bengal kitties. It's been a year now and we have 5 Bengal kitties. We'll be celebrating our 12th wedding anniversary this year. He's the best thing that ever happened to me. Matched with a girl on Tinder and we decided to meet up. She looked a lot chubbier in person, but I didn't mind. Problem was she brought her fat best friend without telling me and she stayed throughout our date. I was pretty much left out of place the whole time. A. It's pretty low effort. 2. Many of my dates originating online had successful outcomes, ranging from short-term relationships to marriage. Mind you, this was before Tinder. Dating is just a numbers game. Entertain anything that gets you dates. I mostly use the likes of Tinder and Bumble as a means to proving to myself that they don't work. I could swipe right as often as it permits me, but I get nothing. I wouldn't even know what to do if I did get a match. I don't expect to get that far. So, the short answer in my case is it hasn't, though that's pretty much entirely my own fault. Please subscribe if you like the video. It really helps the channel to grow. Adios.